Hello everybody! It's been quite some time since I've done a video for my Insider's Viewpoint blog, but I decided to do something new this year. It's kind of exciting for me. I wanted to put more of a personal touch on my blog, in my blogs in general, but especially for my Insider's Viewpoint blog. It's my viewpoint. It's an insider's viewpoint on a theater artist in general that has been involved in the business for over 47 years, and I wanted to put my personal touch to it, and I feel videos are the best way of doing that. So from this point forward, I'm going to go ahead and do my top 10 lists, reviews, things of that nature in video format, not just a little blog entry, typing in it. I think better on the fly, and especially with my reviews when I come back from a film or from a live stage performance, I think it'd be a lot easier for me to just right there do a video and be able to just get my feelings out, and how I felt about that experience. I think it would be much more better for my blog, and for you, the people that visit my blogs. And so I hope that you will enjoy this, and I hope it'll make for a much better all-around experience, especially for myself. I always just sit there and put off, and by the time a show closes, then I put the review up. And I just don't want to do that anymore. So hopefully this will work. I'm hoping that you will enjoy this more. For my first video, I wanted to piggyback from a live stream that I did, that I was a part of with on YouTube with quite a bit of my friends, about their top sequels. In their opinion, their top sequels to popular films. And I just wanted to do my top 10 list for the top sequels. My opinion on the top 10 sequels, in my humble opinion. Now, I want to kind of do a disclaimer here that in no way am I criticizing or downing the originals of these films. Quite the contrary. I can say hands down, every single film that I have here on my list, the original films, all of them were great. I'm just going to put that blanket statement right here and now, this disclaimer. By picking these sequels, saying that they're better than the originals, is not saying the originals are bad. Not in any way. This is just, in my humble opinion, why I think the sequels just were a bit better. These are gut reactions for me, and why when I saw the sequels, I just felt they were better. And this is a very rare thing for me. If anybody that knows me personally, let me tell you, sequels are a sore spot with me. Particularly sequels that come under the guise of remakes. Just shoot me now. I mean, I'm seriously. Most remakes to me are absolute crap. Hands down, period. That's my opinion. I don't care how unpopular that is. The remakes that have been done, there are a handful in my personal lifetime. I'm 55 now, and there have been some remakes that I have seen that actually are good. I don't think I can recall one that was better than the original, but they were just as good or equal. And so that's something that in future video I'm going to do on that down the road. But for me, sequels just are very hard area for me, especially in the horror franchise. And I'm a huge cinephile. Period. I love motion pictures and film, but I do love a good horror movie. I'm a huge horror movie fan. That's not a popular thing these days. Never has been, and I don't really care. Since I was very young, I saw my very first horror movie ever. The first horror movie I ever saw was Disney. When Walt Disney, when I was a child, started kind of delving into a little bit of horror, and they did two films. The Watcher in the Woods and Something Wicked This Way Comes. Both those films terrified me. But because they were under the guise of Disney, they were PG. So they weren't really that bad for kids. They were geared toward a kind of a younger adult teenage audience. and those two films just terrified me. They were great films, and now seeing them now as an adult, they're even better. I mean, but that was my foray into horror, and I've loved it ever since. And so that's why that's just something that I love to do. That's why I'm a huge horror fan. But when I get back now to this video, I'm going to list for you the my top 10 sequels of all time. And so I hope that you will enjoy that. I'm going to start with number 10 and move up to my number 1, my favorite, all-time favorite. The first one, this trilogy, was something that was unexpected. Very unexpected for me, at least. When I was going to college and all that, and back in the day, nothing beat nothing. I was there, and on the big screen, I saw Tim Burton's Batman. I mean, it was amazing. Michael Keaton, I mean, hands down, brilliant. He's my favorite Batman. And Jack Nicholson is the Joker, incredible. And so that for me is something that's always held a special place in my heart. But when Christopher Nolan came out with his trilogy, I was very surprisingly pleased by his trilogy and his version of the Batman story. It really was great. I loved it. I actually loved it, and they were exhausting. I mean, they were all three of them were over 2 hours long. Very epic, and so that is really just something that really surprised me. And for me, this is my number 10 choice for my favorite sequel, is the second installment in this trilogy of Christopher Nolan's, and that was The Dark Knight. The first one was brilliant. Do not get me wrong. It was action-packed, incredible story. And Christian Bale, oh my gosh, I mean, it was so brilliant. But I mean, I am telling you, in this film, what really got me was hands down, in my humble opinion, the best interpretation of the character of Joker I have ever seen. Hands down. And that's Heath Ledger. He took this film and under Christopher Nolan's brilliant direction, and just blew me away. This film blew me away because of his performance. And his and Christian Bale's interactions were bone-chilling. These two actors had great chemistry, and it just all made for a great sequel. It was exciting. It ramped up the action and the pace 300%, in my opinion. And so it was just absolutely incredible. The Dark Knight was a really worthy sequel. It's one of those rare times for me, and it's made my top 10 list. It was my number 10. It's just amazing to me, and I hands down just loved The Dark Knight. I might pause it for just a second just to let you know that I'm not really saying these are from my least favorite to my favorite. These are all my favorites. So just to let you know that. The next one, this was a franchise that I grew up with as a kid. I loved this franchise, and I had wonderful memories as a kid. I think I was about 10 or so, if I remember right. I just trying to remember when the film came out. I can't remember right now off my head, top of my head. But I fell in love with it. But for me, this may be controversial to some people, especially of my generation. I'm 55, as I probably mentioned before earlier in this video. But for me, the sequel to the original, and the original was wonderful. I mean, it was magic. And this is what I'm talking about, is Superman 2. Christopher Reeve, he was wonderful. He was my Superman, and will always be my Superman. But the second movie, and the first movie was brilliant. Not to say that was not. Oh my gosh, but it just, for some reason, for my gut reaction was that the second one took the storytelling of of Superman and just took it to a whole new level. And particularly, and I don't remember this during my childhood. That's why I think this impacted me. Really taking a look at and expanding a story of the villain. In this case, the three villains or traitors that Superman's father, played by the brilliant Marlon Brando, he banished them. If you remember, in the first film, he banished them. Well, they escape the banishment, and they come to Earth to get revenge against the son, of their former king, ruler, whatever you want to. I can't remember what his name is for the life of me off the hand. Marlon Brando's character's name, but it just was. Never mind. It really was not that important. We're splitting hairs here, but basically that's it. Just I'd never seen anything like it before. That they focused on them coming back to get revenge against Superman. It was amazing, and I was so just glued to the screen as a kid. Watching this war between these, and a lot of it, for the most part, a battle of wits, of intelligence, and all those that were surrounding Superman were supporting him and encouraging him to beat these three people that really basically threatened the world, particularly the United States. They crashed into the White House, people. Oh my gosh. They desecrated the flag. Everything that was, sacred to us as Americans. The American flag. Come on. It was just everything. It was just this incredible sequel, incredible film that I just loved as a kid. It held my attention. And in my generation, when I was about 10 or 11, it took a lot to keep my attention. But I remember seeing this with my parents on the big screen, and it was just one of the best sequels ever, in my opinion, that I've ever seen in my lifetime, particularly on the big screen. It just was amazing. They did a really good job. Coming in at number 8, some people might disagree with me on this. This was really a trilogy. It was not, like The Dark Knight. You really can't count it as a sequel. I got news for you. I don't care what you say, okay? It's a sequel. Even if it's a trilogy, it's a sequel, as far as I'm concerned. And that is Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Now, Peter Jackson, hands down, is a director that I admire. Some of his other films I have really loved and really liked. And I love the trilogy, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. He did a really good job with it. It's almost a Herculean task to put that mammoth of a novel onto the screen. But he did it. And even with the films being 3 hours in length, it didn't matter. It's still, he did it, and did it successfully. And particularly with the third film, The Return of the King, winning the Academy Award for Best Picture. That was a surprise for me. It really was. But to focus on The Two Towers, I just think this was such a worthy, outstanding sequel to the first film. Peter Jackson just took his time a little bit more with this, and it's one of probably the darker of the three. But also, I think what makes it so great is it really focuses on Frodo, his battle, his inner battle and struggle, this burden that has been placed upon him to get this ring to Mordor and destroy it. It just, what he was going through, and the struggles they all went through, and it just seemed when they were just getting on the top of the mountain, top of the hill, they fall, go back down, and they just keep hitting obstacle after obstacle after obstacle, and it just seems, battle after battle, all the other characters, they just keep winning, and then they lose. It just was a film that just really focused on the power of hope, and the power of just to keep moving on no matter what. That's why I think the main theme, and I think what made this film a great sequel, was that alone. Was that focus on hope. It was just such an inspiring experience for me. But in particular, the final monologue by Samwise at the end, is probably one of the greatest moments in cinematic history, in my opinion. This monologue, it just, oh my goodness gracious, was so beautifully done by the incredible young actor Sean Astin. And just a few years ago, I had the great privilege, excuse me, of meeting him in person at my alma mater, Utah Valley University. He was there for a conference on addiction, and he was one of the main speakers, and he was talking about his experience as a son of an alcoholic, with his mother, who had just recently passed away, Patty Duke Astin. And he came to talk with our theater department, the School of Theater Arts. And he was talking about his career and what got him started, and going through a lot of memories of his past career and his films. But what made this visit to our campus so incredible was that he, excuse me, I'm so sorry, performed that monologue for us in person. He read it, but it was such a surreal experience for all of us to hear that incredible monologue given to us in person by the actor that put it on screen in the first place. It was such an incredible experience, and for me, it's just it encompasses the experience that it was Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and why it's on my list as one of the best, my top 10 sequels. It just was an incredible experience. Now, the next two, in positions number 7 and 6, are an example of another reason why I really feel like I had fallen in love with the sequel more than the original, was when a new director comes into play, a different pair of eyes, and takes a story to a new level, a whole new level, and actually enhances the story, makes it better, and even more important, expands the universe. And this first one, coming out at number 7, is Terminator 2. The great James Cameron. He did such a great job. I mean, the original Terminator was bone-chilling. Oh my gosh, it was so incredible. But this sequel, he didn't succumb to any trying to repeat or trying to keep the success of the first one and just keep going with the original idea and don't mess with it. He messed with it. He literally just took people's expectations and turned them around. And I remember going into it and saying, oh great, we're going to see, oh my gosh, we're going to see Arnold Schwarzenegger as a new Terminator. Yeah, he was a Terminator, all right, but he wasn't the villain. He was the hero that came to protect Sarah's son. I mean, my gosh, it totally surprised me as an audience member. I thought, wow, he became the hero. And this was just around the beginnings of CGI and what the possibilities of CGI and what it could do for a film. And I mean good CGI. Not somewhat CGI that's being used now today in some films just sucks really bad. We're not even going to go there. It's just bad. In some of these films lately, the CGI has just not done anything for the film. It's made it worse. They made them worse. Not this one. CGI effects were incredible. They blew me away. It was just amazing. And this villain, this new Terminator that Sarah and son and Arnold's Terminator had to face and had to conquer, my goodness gracious, it was just epic. And James Cameron, just a new pair of eyes, just took this franchise and made this sequel and just made it incredible, an incredible ride. It was wonderful. Now next, in number 6, once again, James Cameron comes into a different franchise and makes it all his own. And that's the sequel to Alien, and I'm talking about Aliens. What a sequel. I mean, the original Alien, oh my gosh, hands down, come on, wow. What a horrifying film. I mean, it was just amazing to me, but Aliens, oh my gosh, talk about taking a franchise and just ramping it up as high as you can go with it. I mean, my goodness. And in reality, really had more screen time for, to me, one of the most terrifying villains in all of horror science fiction history, and that's the alien herself. I mean, my gosh, this creature scared the crap out of me. It was so intense and so horrifying. I mean, I was literally white-knuckled the entire time I was sitting in my theater seat. No joke. It just blew me away. And you had tons of them. This thing kept reproducing and Oh my goodness! James Cameron just really went with it, and it really showed him at one of the greatest moments of his directorial career. And so it's just such an incredible sequel. It's one of those rare moments again that he just really did such a great job. It was amazing to me. Oh my goodness gracious. Now the next one, in number 5, it's kind of unusual because there's only one sequel in this franchise. It's not really a franchise. I'm talking about Top Gun Maverick. This is one of those sequels that really surprised me. I was expecting it to be good. I didn't think it was going to be bad, but I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was. It really is a good film and a good sequel. It really did. It just continued the story on. It's been many, many, many years later, but it's like we're seeing Maverick in a different light. I mean, it's like we never left him, but he's grown, and so has Tom Cruise as an actor. And he really took this character to a new level and was growing with it and expanding the character, and it was believable. And it was so touching and so incredible. And him being now on the teaching side, and being a mentor to young pilots like he was in the first film. It was a joy to watch. The film overall was just a joy to watch. And I just loved every minute of it. It was a worthy sequel. And that's why I put it into the spot that it was. For me, it just was a very wonderful, wonderful surprise. Now I'm going to go into a little bit of the horror genre now and talk about a real kind of a popular series at the time. It's considered in classic, or at least 1970s, early 1980s horror, and that is the Omen trilogy. And in particular, I'm going to be talking about the sequel, Damien Omen 2. Now, people that know me, I do not really like religious horror, especially paranormal horror. I am 55 years old, and I have never seen The Exorcist and don't ever intend to. I make no apologies. I just have a hard time handling religious horror. But this trilogy was different. This was an apocalyptic story about the apocalypse from the Roman Catholic point of view, about the birth of the Antichrist and how that he was going to come and destroy and how he needed to be defeated. It was just this fascinating, well-made trilogy. I mean, the third one was okay. It wasn't great, but it was good. And not to down the first one, because the first one was so terrifying. And the wonderful performance by the great character actor Gregory Peck. I mean, he was incredible. But equal to him in this one was the wonderful character actor that played his brother. That is the wonderful William Holden. I mean, oh my gosh. These two classic, iconic character actors in this first two films of this trilogy. It was amazing. Kudos to the producers and to the directors and the creatives involved in getting these two actors. But in this one, the second one, it just took the story to a whole new level. It was even more terrifying, and just the action was so ramped up. It was just amazing. I mean, to me, and we saw the incredible actor that played young Damien grow into his own. He was a really good actor, and he really had more screen time and had the chance to really come into this character. He's beginning to struggle with who he is and realizing that he is the Antichrist. He is the son of the devil. And eventually then he gives into it, and he starts to relish it and enjoy it, and starting to get that lust for power and the amazing power that he has. It's terrifying. Many more kills in this. The kills were absolutely terrifying, and some of them were so just unexpected. They it didn't rely a lot on gore. They were violent. A lot of them were brutal, mean-spirited, but they were just totally thrilling, and some of them come out of the blue, were unexpected, and it just made for a terrifying film, and probably one of the most terrifying endings to any sequel, hands down. I mean, my goodness gracious. And so, kudos to the entire cast. This was a great sequel. Now for me, this next one, and this is in my top 3 spots. This is number 3. Nothing can beat this. In the sci-fi genre, nothing can beat this sequel. And I'm talking about Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. There's no debate here. I mean, the entire Star Trek film canon was great, wonderful. I loved all the films. But in this case, I can probably say I didn't hate the original, but the original one just was too long, and it just wasn't. Robert Wise just, to me, was not up to the task of doing a sci-fi film, especially this franchise. We used to joke about it when we were kids, when I was young. The first movie came out, it was dubbed Star Wreck, the Motion Sickness. That's so mean. It wasn't that bad, but that's what it was called. I'm serious. All my classmates all called it Star Wreck, the Motion Sickness. But this sequel, oh my gosh. I mean, how can you beat, the incredible cast of Star Trek. I mean, hands down, but the incredible Ricardo Montalban as Khan. To me, one of the most iconic, great sci-fi villains of all time. And if you get the chance, I would go back to the original series and see the episode that he was in. You'd have to look it up. I can't remember off the top of my hand the title of the episode that Khan first appears in. You see his origins and what happened to him. So then when you see Star Trek II, it makes more sense why he's coming back for revenge on Captain Kirk. But William Shatner and Ricardo Montalban's chemistry and their battle against each other is just so spellbinding. And it's just, this movie is so exciting to watch. It never gets old for me. Never, never, ever gets old for me. Period. And so that's why it's in my top 3. It just blew me away. I will never forget it as long as I live. It will stick in my memory as one of the best sequels, in my opinion, ever made. And it really improved upon the original. Really did. The number 2 spot, come on. I'm not just copying everybody else. This is, I think, on anybody that I know personally is on their top 10 list, their top 5 list of greatest sequels of all time, and that is The Empire Strikes Back, hands down. This was another case where another pair of eyes comes in this case, Irwin Kershner. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I think George Lucas was very smart in having a different director come in and put their take on the story. Something I wish he would have done in the prequels. I love the prequels. Do not get me wrong, I love them. I know a lot of people don't. I love them. I like them. But I think they would have been even better if he had done with them what he did with Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And that is get another pair of eyes. Get away from your own material and let somebody else take your material to a whole new level. And that's what Aaron Kirshner did in Empire Strikes Back. I think, if I remember right, the American Film Institute has dubbed it the greatest science fiction film ever made. I happen to agree with that 100%. To me, it is. I will never forget it. I will never forget sitting in that movie theater with such anticipation of what this is going to be about. And number one, the villains win in this. It was unheard of. We had the Jedis and the whole rebellion won against, they blew up the Death Star. Oh, it was so great. And we come into this one, and by the end, we feel like a wet rag as an audience. I mean, Han Solo, this great hero that we love, is frozen in carbonite. We see Princess Leia falling in love with him, and so that's just short-lived. The moment, oh my gosh, there's so many moments to talk about. At the moment before he is lowered into that shaft and put in carbonite, and he says, I love you, and she looks back and says, I know, and it still gets to me. Oh my gosh, that moment when I was a kid, I was crying and I didn't know why. I was about 12, I remember now when that came out, and oh my gosh, it just destroyed me. And all of that, but even the special effects for its time, the stop motion, oh my gosh, the incredible tauntauns, oh, come on. But the Battle of Hoth with the walkers, I mean, come on, that is still to this day such an incredible sequence. Those special effects were amazing. I don't care what any of the new generations say. I don't care. Hands down, I was just so excited and just jumping. I was so stir crazy in my seat. This was such a cool battle that when we saw this, it was just so incredible. But I'll tell you, as everybody knows it, the ending, none of us saw that coming. None of us saw that coming when Darth Vader confessed to Luke that he was his father. We were all all of us in the movie theater were just like, what? No, he did, what? What? I know, we're all looking at each other like, no, yeah, it just was so amazing. And I laugh now when I remember going to see Age of the Avengers, oh my goodness gracious, I'm doing great. I'm sorry, guys, I have a ping pong brain. I'm going back and forth. Infinity War. Excuse me, sorry. When I was in the theater and you get to the ending of that, and all these characters are just dying and disappearing. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, this is not right. And I laughed at them. I didn't mean to laugh at them and all, but I'm like, hey, you guys, it's only going to be a few months and you're going to find out what happens, okay? Us, back in the day with Empire Strikes Back, we had to wait 3 years, people. 3 years before we had confirmation that Darth Vader was not lying. We had to wait 3 years. Cry me a river, people. This is the world's smallest violin, and it's playing just for you. I mean, seriously, people, we had to wait 3 whole years before we could have confirmation that this was true. I will never forget one of the most intense, craziest moments in motion picture history. And that's what makes this such a wonderful sequel. And it was because of a different pair of eyes. And George Lucas's wonderful story. It just made such an incredible sequel. Hands down. And finally, if you're still here with me, oh my gosh, bless you. Bless you, bless you. I know I've been ranting on, it's almost 34 minutes now. But my choice for number 1 is another trilogy. But for me, it just is a shining example to me, in my opinion. And AFI, the American Film Institute, says the same thing as the greatest sequel ever made. Now, don't quote me, I might be wrong on that, but if I remember right, watching their special on all these different films, called the greatest films of all time. They said something akin to that, but I might be wrong. But in my opinion, anyway, it is the greatest sequel ever made, hands down, and that is The Godfather Part 2. The original Godfather was amazing. I mean, groundbreaking. As a crime drama. But the sequel, the way it was, for Francis Ford Coppola wrote it, it was how it was edited, and this combining these stories of a young of the father as Marlon Brando as a young man played by the incredible Robert De Niro, and how it flowed right so well with Michael Corleone, Al Pacino's rise to power in the family business. It was so well constructed and put together. It was just so incredible. I mean, wow, people. Wow. It was hands down, to me, the greatest sequel. And the way it was done. And unfortunately, the third movie, great film, but the casting of Francis Ford Coppola's daughter ruined it. Ruined it. And I wish he hadn't done that. I wish he'd gotten a different actress, and not to down or condemn Sofia Coppola anyway, because she's a great talent. But as an actress, she just didn't do it for me. She's a good writer. She's a great writer and great director. She's done films now and written some films that have been incredible and wonderful. But it just was sad that had to happen. But this, to me, is the best example of, to me, the best sequel ever made, in my opinion, in my lifetime, is The Godfather Part 2. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this. That's my top 10 list of the top 10 sequels that are better than the original. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, I apologize for it going on so long, but I hope that you enjoy this. If you really like this, please hit the like button. This will let me know if you liked it and like this format. It lets me know if you like this format of top 10 lists and reviews being done this way. I would really like to know. I hope that you will do that. That'll help me know if you enjoy this. And drop in the comments what you think, about my choices. And also, don't hesitate to disagree with me. Put in your choices. I'd love to see other people's choices for other sequels. I might have missed some. Or really, there's so many other great sequels, too, that really just couldn't be put on a list. I would make the list so much longer. I'd love to hear your choices. So do the same. I'd love to see your choices. So I appreciate your time. I hope you enjoyed this. And thank you so much for watching. And I will see you soon. God bless.